Nigerians are set to pay more for single-phase and three-phase prepaid electricity meters. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission says the move is to ensure fair and reasonable pricing of meters to both meter asset providers and end-user customers. Emmanuel Onasami, lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services, joins me now to discuss electricity tariffs and meter production dynamics in Nigeria. Emmanuel, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, Nigerians are not happy about this 40% hike in prepaid, these categories of prepaid meters. But the NERC, the regulator, has said, look, we need this, the meter asset providers, if they're going to give you good meters, if they're going to remain profitable, etc. And we need to also be cognizant of the prevailing economic realities as they are today. But what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are pretty much of the reality. It is what it is. You know, when the regulator actually had an agreement with the electricity distribution companies, you know, and they developed the MITO tariff, you know, during that period, you know, if you look at the exchange rates that were prevalent for that negotiation, you know that is a far cry for what the exchange rate is looking like today. So that means that the reality of doing business in that space has also changed, and if they are to continue as a going concern in that space, something has to be done about their fee, you know, for their service offering, and that's what is necessitating, you know, that conversation. But, you know, it's not just good to look at it from one end. You also want to evaluate the impact on small businesses and how are they going to cope this period.
Well, so I'll throw that question back to you. How are they going to cope this period?
Yeah, so if you look at our...
Because I understand, sorry to butt in, it's going, so these meters are going from somewhere around 51,000 to 80-something thousand. It's 82,000 now.
Yeah, that is about 40% increase in the acquisition of the meter. But now talk about the tariff also. Recently, you know, July, you know, there was an increase in tariff rate across the distribution companies. You know, and that also moved like a 1 kilowatt hour to about in the range of 100 naira per 1 kilowatt hour. You know, and the implication of that, if you couple that understanding with the fact that the fuel price has also jumped up, that means that the cost of energy for businesses has really gone up. You know, and if you want to really foster production as an economy, one of the areas that you need to look at, you know, if you look at other climes, you know, is that they pay attention to the factors of production and see to it that the factors of production enable production in those economies. So, for example, if you look at the example of China, India, you will see that almost every household is producing something in their corners because the cost of power is cheap, cost of labor is cheap, and that's why they can do that. But just oppose that to our situation in Nigeria, realize that there is a far cry, and you know what is obtainable in the street today, you see people closing out their shop because in their assessment there's no point opening it because you can't even earn a living from the venture.
But let's talk about the distribution of the meters and the national meter asset program, as it were, you know, to distribute meters. Yes. What does this mean for the program, and how we know that obviously there's still a good number of Nigerians who are yet to be metered. So obviously this is going to impact that. So do you see the process slowing down? But because we do, those who are unmetered will still need to get those meters because we're trying to phase out the estimated billing system. Yeah,
I understand that players within that industry are trying to see how they can include even the lower people in the echelon to acquire meter for the purpose of monitoring the energy consumption in the space and rightly, you know, billing for those energy, because without metering, that means that the incidence of theft, you know, that makes that industry unsustainable, this still continues. What we've seen so far is that, you know, some of the distribution companies have found a way of making some part of the payment in advance, while the rest of the payment will be charged as you are using the meter, you know. And the issue that has not also been fully resolved is the issue of the ownership of the meter, you know, after acquisition, you know, and then the regulator is saying going forward, you should transfer the ownership of the meter to the people that have paid for the acquisition of the meter. Those are ongoing conversations that even as they engage in this distribution process, you know, to include, you know, the unincluded people for metering, I believe that all those areas will be ironed out.
I'd like us to expand this conversation, looking at the power sector, you know, vis-a-vis, you know, tariffs, the new policies to, you know, get us from, I think we're still doing somewhere around 4,000 megawatts, as it were, you know, under 5,000. Let's say that way. I mean, what kind of policies are you looking forward to? Should we begin to have? We know that power power makes life so much better. Power will power this economy if we get it right. But we haven't gotten it right, obviously, in the last 8 years. But we're sort of, on a fresh slate, as it were.
Yeah, the introduction of the Electricity Act 2023, I think, is a noble development that I believe not just the federal government, the state government and the local government has to be deliberate, enough in looking at the opportunities provided by that act to further meet the power need of their people, within their own jurisdiction. The Electricity Act has provided for opportunity for fresh investment, within the power sector. And if the government at the state level and the local government level having diversified, not decentralized power generation in that act, then their opportunities are limitless. And I know that investors will be interested in that space. The areas that we can also be looking at is the option of the renewables. Because not everybody yes, the grid seems to be cheapest, but alternative or sources also could be more sustainable for some category of people that are not able to, to tap into the grid.
Now, for the state governments who now have power, the right or power to generate their own power, as it were, we know that they still have to go back to the drawing board, write out the framework and all of that. Do you worry that this may take a while? Do you sense that there's an urgency to get in these frameworks, whatever they may look like, for investors to come in quickly?
In order to stimulate our economy, there is an urgency in the power sector. There is a sincere urgency in the power sector, and the government has to be very deliberate about that. I believe strongly that, to foster production within the small-scale businesses, there has to be deliberate effort by the government to provide some form of renewable option for them to tap into in the meantime, while the government is building up capacity, whether at the local government level or the state level, to develop, or expand the grid, capacity, then there is a need for urgent intervention to support local and small-scale production with power. Otherwise, our quest to jack up production may be far-fetched.
Okay, Emmanuel, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Appreciate your insight on this topic. Emmanuel Onasami, lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services.